Alyssa, many here in Calgary and across the province are now seeing a blanket of white, looking like a winter wonderland. My son's flight at the Calgary airport was delayed for 2 hours as crews were de-icing the wings. Will we receive even more of the white stuff, possibly later this week?
Yeah, so we are into winter, the winter season. This was the first snowfall event for southern Alberta of this year. It's a little bit late coming at the end of November here, but yeah, that's what we're looking at for even into later this week. We're looking at more snowfall, maybe a couple centimeters, not quite as much as the dump earlier in the week.
Many people I talk to say, we'll take the moisture with this rain or snow. We kind of need it for all the drought we've had here in southern Alberta. Now, where did the system originate from and where is it headed to next?
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is your typical, what we call it's just an Alberta Clipper, a snowfall event in the wintertime. It happens as rainfall events in the spring and summer. It's essentially just a feed of moisture coming from the Pacific. It comes into BC, develops a low pressure system in the lee of the Rockies in Alberta here, and then usually trucks off to the east. In this case, it moved through Montana, parts of southern Saskatchewan, and then further east.
So will it hit central Canada, maybe in Ontario and Quebec?
Yeah, so usually when systems form, that's how weather patterns work in Western Canada. They develop here and then they move off, usually impacting either like Hudson Bay or then sometimes they move into the States. Other times they move into the States and then back up into Ontario and Quebec. Yeah.
So what's the rest of the month looking like for our part here in the prairies for the first part of December and of course later this month? Can we maybe expect one of those legendary Chinooks to make its way over the Rockies, warm things up and melt all the snow?
So, well, unfortunately, probably not. We're actually looking at a pretty significant change in the weather pattern. So, right across the fall so far, we've been very much above normal, pretty much right through the second half of October, right in through November here. The weather pattern change that's coming, this is kind of the first shot, but we're getting into some of those cooler than normal temperatures. Normals for this time of year are about that 0 degrees for daytime highs. We're going to be below that for much of this week, maybe a brief reprieve up to that zero this weekend. But indications are that the first weeks of December and even right into the rest of the month are going to be very, very cold.
So the mercury is plummeting. So will that polar vortex be making its way to other regions as well?
Yeah. So, well, what happens is we have these early indications of the polar vortex weakening. So, the polar vortex always exists. It's just essentially a very strong jet stream that holds colder air up and around the North Pole in northern Canada. In this case, it's going to essentially oscillate a little bit and become where it pushes down into parts of central and southern Canada. In that case, yeah, we are looking at that disruption, and it looks like it's going to happen for the first week of December.
Alysa Pederson, Senior Program Meteorologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada. Thanks so much for your time today.